So what's a cooperative? We'll do an overview for about 15 minutes. There's, again on Wikipedia, cooperative, it's an autonomous association of people united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. That's a definition. So people choose to get together, they want something to happen, and it benefits them in certain ways, and they make it happen, is how I would say that. And there's 7 principles, which I think are really great, and those are on the sheet. And there's 2 versions I've put there. One's from 1937, one's from 1966. And if you look them over, basically membership is open, and it's voluntary. So no one's forced to join, and it's open in ways that are stated. So collective agency, which I'll talk about later, everyone is worthy of being a member, anyone can join. There's some broad community guidelines, but other than that, you can join. There's a small cost based on income or a large cost, depending on how you view it. There's democratic governance. So the United States of America, if we want to think of that as a cooperative, that would be interesting. If we want to think of a city like Portland as a cooperative, it's cooperatively run, I would say, or a neighborhood association, or a street party, or a house. There's some rules, there's some guidelines. Writing them down makes it more open to people who aren't in on the know. And once you have more than a few people, I think it's better to write things down so other people can understand what happens and how they can participate. There's a limited return on equity, so there's different ways of saying that. They changed that over the however many years. But basically the goal of it, the only goal is not to make money, is how I would say it. There's a goal for human value. People should get something out of it other than money. They should have better quality of life, be happier, be more fulfilled in their work, do work they like, have better quality products. Years ago, one of the first cooperatives, they got oatmeal to workers. And that was a valuable service. It was hard to get oatmeal on your own back then, I guess, unless you had a lot of money. There's a surplus belongs to members, so members decide what to do with the resources they have. So if you live in this house, I'm assuming there are some decisions you can make about, do we get another clock and where do we put it? Or maybe you can just do that. Or let's say we have events, what events do we have? I'm assuming there's some structure for deciding things. Education of members and educating the public on what are cooperative principles. So this is education right now. I feel very grateful for participating in cooperatives as a kid, going to a Sunday school where my mom was actively involved, as an adult going to REI as a buyer, where I'm not really actively involved, but I love the products and I love the store. And then many cooperatives I've been at, including student clubs at colleges and even high schools. Those are essentially cooperatively run. I really don't like putting labels on things and then forgetting about things that don't call themselves by that word. I really like looking at what is something. And then cooperation between cooperatives. So when I worked at a business, we sold TVs and home appliances online. Sometimes I was doing marketing, I would call up other stores and I would say, hey, could I talk to the person who does whatever? Usually they would talk and I would ask certain questions about how they do business. And they would usually tell me. And if they said, why are you calling? I would say, well, I'm trying to do something similar at this company. I'd like to learn from you. And usually they would tell me. Just being upfront and direct and helping each other. And so that goes for any business at all, or any city, or any group. And concern for a community. So it's not just about everyone in this room right now. It's about people outside this room who aren't here. Concern for a community, a greater good. And are there questions about that? So those are some principles. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like your broad and inclusive definition of cooperative, but I like some contrasting examples.
Yeah. So on the next page,
Okay.
so there are some cooperatives we have in Portland which are different from some others. So food co-ops. If I go into a a store like Safeway or Plaid Pantry, that's going to have a different feel to it than if I go into People's Co-op, which is a collective within a cooperative. The staff are collective, members are cooperative. But if I go into People's or Food Front, it's going to have a different feel than if I go into a big chain store. Personally, I love Ace Hardware, and I learned a few years ago that actually that's a cooperative, not of buyers. As a customer, I don't really decide much, but if I want to start an Ace Hardware in my store, it's kind of like a franchise, so you can get it started, but I would say the opposite of a franchise. So you get to decide how the governance is done, the central people, wherever they're located. You get to elect people. You get to decide what the rules are. So everyone's very supportive, and you decide how the central corporate hub works. Unitarian Universalism, Quakerism, Reform Judaism, these are also cooperatively run, so congregational or fellowships. So basically there's a bunch of locations with communities of people, and how can they coordinate so people know what they do, so there's some overlap between the different places, but they can each do their own thing and make their own rules. So they elect people to their county, to their state, nationally, and every now and then they get together and talk, is the most casual way of saying it, and they elect people who run the central organization that does the marketing, does the solves the issues that come up between the groups. So other cooperatives in Portland, I took a taxi ride the other day, and the taxi driver was telling me basically unionizing in different struggles and different getting results. And a lot of taxi companies are cooperatives. What's a big orange juice company? Sunkist is a cooperative. So if you're selling oranges, it'd be nice to have someone do the marketing for you, so you don't have to learn marketing. So Sunkist does that. Orange growers pay Sunkist or get paid by Sunkist, I don't know the details, but they decide how the marketing is done, and they call themselves Sunkist. What else?
But how's that different from, say, McDonald's, where
Yeah.
it's a franchise, the stores are individually owned,
Yeah.
but the marketing is done by the...
Yeah. So McDonald's was started by Ray Kroc. It's kind of an amazing autobiography. And basically you have a McDonald's corporate, and they have shareholders, who are not customers, are not workers, are not local store owners. And the shareholders decide McDonald's brand, their image. McDonald's target what they call heavy users. So there's a whole strategy of getting people to come in very often and get them essentially addicted to the product and to pay money. So the cooperative principles of, is there concern for community? Maybe. Is maybe not as much as some other place where you buy food, where it's a cooperative.
They do have places and things like that.
Yeah. It's not democratically governed. You have a central control, kind of like a country where you have a central control and you don't have elections.
Right, so the store owners really don't have much of a say in how things are run in the
Yeah.
corporation.
And there's not much education on how to be democratic coming out of McDonald's.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a lot of different cooperatives in the United States. And abroad, there's some really amazing models. And with learning, all the time I'll meet people. Yesterday I met an amazing lawyer who advises cooperatives. And you just go in and you look for something, and I feel like I start to see what I'm looking for almost everywhere. So it's like, who's doing cooperatives? And there's so much in Portland and everywhere. Mondragon, I'm probably mangling the pronunciation of that, in Spain. That's basically a network of independent contractors. And basically it started with a guy who was in a neighborhood, and I think he wanted better schools for kids. I could be getting the story wrong.
A gas stove company.
Sorry?
A stove company of some sort, I think is how they started.
Okay, yeah. And so they started with a business, which might have been stoves. And nowadays, I think they have 13 businesses, and they've gone to thousands or tens of thousands of members. and they're very big. And something I like to think about is, when is it too big to be really good? And that depends on what it is, I think. So Mondragon, that model inspired, it's called Rainbow Grocery in San Francisco. And I went there, I sort of was exploring a few years ago, and I shopped around, and they have aisles, and workers control the aisles that they manage. And then you have workers doing a checkout, and you have workers stay later than they might otherwise to do the management and to do the accounting and to do the business services. And that's a choice they've made. We want to do this extra work of the management and do the work of stocking the shelves and selling to customers. And that model, Rainbow Grocery in San Francisco, inspired a lawyer who sets up little cooperatives. So there's I think the best pizza I ever had in the world is in San Francisco, and it's called Arizmendi Bakery, named after the guy who started Mondragon. And workers decide things. I don't know the details. And the lawyer who started it, I think he gets 25% of profits, and I don't know how much that is. But he goes around starting these cooperatives and helping them out and advising and making a lot of money from it, or enough money. So that's a good capitalist model.